There you go.
Not a surprise to anybody that's followed this team, but just the immediate reaction to, all right, we've cut our losses. Gregg Williams is out after 3 years where he went a combined 17-31.
The weirdest part of that is that Gregg
terrible
Williams
head coach,
which you never see from a fired coach.
I mean, really ugly sweater.
Oh, terrible sweater.
I remember this.
The firing before he had a press conference. Now this was after all the stuff happened a week later. But he also had a press conference in an awful.
Y'all remember this?
So it was almost like the Bills. That was their cloak of sadness. When you put the sweater on, that means you're going.
I can see, why the rich tradition of the Buffalo Bills is what it is. The Buffalo Bills fans are tremendous fans. They're well known throughout the country. And I've said this before, even on my summer trip that I took this past summer when I went to Alaska. I get off the plane and people are pounding me, Buffalo Bills fans, in Anchorage, Alaska, which is amazing.
But like Rex Ryan this year, he gets fired, and there's video of him that WRC
Leaving
had
the truck.
of his truck being driven out of One Bills Drive, and that's the last we saw of him. No press conference, no public comments.
Yeah.
He was on TV a week later. Or
he was on the sideline at some bowl games.
But no one talked to him. Gregg Williams marches out in front of all the cameras
One Bills Drive
to hold up. Yeah, they even hosted it at the team facility, and he was fired. So that was the most surreal part of that.
Really? That was? Because what about Mr. Donahoe?
Also would like to apologize to Gregg. I think some of the personal criticisms that were leveled at him were unfair. And I think there's many people in Western New York should be ashamed of themselves
Oof.
for some of the things they said about the coach.
I guess I'm one of
You
them.
have to like a coach's ability to coach. But some of the personal attacks that I've heard over the last 3 years embarrasses me to be part of this community.
Oh, Donahoe, I remember
It's
that.
unbelievable.
People were
Tom
pissed.
Donahoe ripping the fans of the Buffalo Bills. And those in
Fans
Western New
were
York for
pissed
being rough on
that he
Gregg
said
Williams. Just imagine, we've talked about surreal press conferences before. I think this one throughout the length.
Then they made him come back and apologize, if you guys
top.
remember, which I'm sure they're going to show here, which I think they
Gregg
do.
got fired
Because it was bad.
He and by extension his family had received
PR,
from Tom
like bad.
was a
They
part
had
of the reason why things
to
weren't going well. And
they had to
whether or
talk
not
to
that was
Donahoe
true,
and
who
tell him
knows?
you better get back out there
Football
and
team, people get excited,
you
and
better-
overexcited about it.
you better
But
apologize.
when Tom Donahoe basically called out the city of Buffalo for the way they had treated Gregg, everyone in the media room, I mean, we immediately knew, what are you doing? I mean, this is not how you would approach this as someone who still wants to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you want to tell the story?
No,
now?
I mean, you guys lived it. Just walk me through that afternoon.
So he says that. Everyone thinks it's terrible. We all file our reports. We're driving back to Rochester. At some point on the drive, I think we just heard it on the radio, Tom Donahoe's going to hold the press conference. So immediately turn it around.
See,
get back to
I think the owner, I think Ralph,
I think we found
and maybe a few other people maybe told him,
What's the statute of limitations?
you better get back out there
and not follow that day.
After
Talk
I had
again.
a chance to look at the transcript of the press conference and look at the tape, obviously some things that I said were misinterpreted. In no way was I trying to be critical of the fans and the support that we have received here in Western New York. I have great respect for the fans. I really was trying to be critical of some media types and some talk show hosts who I felt at times have crossed the line in their criticism of Gregg Williams, and they've made it personal. That's what I didn't like, and that's what I'm embarrassed about, and I really don't think there's any place for that. We all should be criticized when we don't do our jobs, whether it's coaches, whether it's personnel, whether it's GM, president of the organization, whatever it is, but I just don't think there's any place for getting personal, and I apologize that the remarks were misinterpreted, and I apologize to our fans if I've offended any of them.
Tom Donahoe's initial press conference was up at the podium, prim and proper. Everyone had a place. He had his everything was done. When he comes back out, it was just kind of him standing there. Tie was halfway undone, like we had pulled him out of like a lounge.
What's wild is they sent that motherfucker. They sent that motherfucker right back out shortly after the initial press conference. To apologize. Like they could have done it he could have written a letter. Sometimes they do that, like a letter to the fans, apologize. Nope, they marched his ass right back out there to apologize, basically, which is wild.
Some busy meeting or something.
And he looked cowed for the first time in his career. He looked cowed, he looked humble, he looked sorry, which he needed to be because what he said was terrible. And he basically said, I didn't mean to say it that way. I mean, he struck all the correct notes, but by then the damage had been
the damage is done.
Were you there at all for that? Or were you back here?
That was me and,
You
that was
fucked
me and
up.
John
You
Jones,
fucked
right?
up.
So if you're sitting back here at the station just hitting refresh on the computer, like, what is happening to the Buffalo Bills? What is happening with Tom Donahoe?
Cloud over one Bills drive was about it. At that
Oh,
point.
man, I can only imagine what that must have been like. But that puts an end on 2003. Just final thoughts from a season that started off so well and ended so poorly, going 6-10. Travis Henry has a strong year, but Bledsoe, it seems like the decline is starting pretty rapidly with him. Just a final word on the 03 season with the Bills.
It wasn't the quarterback. It was, Tom Donahoe in that press conference soured everybody going forward. I don't almost think it didn't matter who he was going to pick as his coach. Unless he hired Vince Lombardi, Tom Donahoe's stink as the GM of the Bills was unremovable after that press conference. And, we talked about who the coach would be and who the players would be, et cetera, et cetera. Donahoe, first of all, he was not well liked in the organization. He was a micromanager. So, you're not going to get anybody behind the scenes. They're going to say nice things about him. And then for him to come out and basically smack Buffalo, nobody was a Donahoe fan at that point. And where they were going to go with this as your figurehead leader was a big mystery.
Yeah, I'm going on the field stuff. I think you look at that defense and some of the talent that they had on the defensive side of that ball was phenomenal.
Yeah, they did.
Defense in 2003.
You had Sam Adams and Pat Williams up front. I mean, good
Fletcher,
luck moving those guys.
yeah,
He might have been a better combo in a long time.
Fletcher and Spikes at linebacker. I mean, that was
Winfield was in safety.
Yeah.
Lawyer Malloy. I mean, they
Nate
were.
Clements
They
was
Clements,
coming up big at time. I mean, it was a good. The defensive unit that year was one of the most entertaining, I think, that I saw.
30th ranked offense, 2nd ranked defense. The
How
Bills
the
6-10
offense just went to shit
2003.
from
They now have to
2002
hire another
2003.
head
So
coach, their second head coach of the Bills playoff drought in